I'd like to start the legislation to be discussed in our pre-meeting conference. Are we all set to begin? Okay. He's coming. I'll give him 2 minutes to take a seat. Hello, man. Okay, I'd like to start with ordinance number 1, a bond ordinance. Heather Mowat is here, our budget director. Would you help us through that?
Okay. So recently, the engineering office approached the mayor about doing some additional work as it relates to the city sewer system. And the reason why I'm pausing here, there are two bond ordinances we're talking about tonight, and I only see one listed on here. I don't know which one is.
Well, it's in committee.
There's one in committee, and there's one that's actually.
So is this the one in the committee?
That's on the agenda.
Nope.
Okay.
A9.1.
Okay, so this is the sewer one. And so as you know, as part of our CSO project of splitting apart our sewer and our stormwater projects, we've been really very fortunate to apply for all kinds of grants and low to no interest loans. Often to do that, we have to put our best foot forward in faith and approach the state and say, look, we're willing to borrow money if we're granted these funds. And so in continuing that, when the engineering department approached the mayor said, okay, I'm okay with you going downstairs, but I want to know that we're gonna have enough money if this goes forward, you know, over the life of the project to be able to make debt payments. And I went back to our debt schedules for the sewer fund. We haven't really borrowed money the past couple of years. Some of our short-term obligations have gone to long-term at 0% interest. And I think that's why Paul's here. He's going to talk a little bit more about this. But this would not affect the sewer rate at all because we'll be having debt coming off as we're putting new debt on. That's if we're fortunate enough to move forward with this project. So I'll turn it over to Stephanie Wers, representing our engineering department tonight, and Paul Romano for Ramble.
Yeah, this was in front of you one other time, the A9.1 project. It's one of the projects in the city's long-term control plan to control combined sewer overflow into Mohawk River, Blue and Nail Creeks. So it's in that plan, there's probably 15, 16 different projects. Ultimately, the city has to show to the state that the water quality in the Mohawk River is meeting standards. So all these projects together bring the city to a point where we can meet those water quality standards, and the intention is to always keep the city out of a consent order with DEC relative to combined sewers. So this project was one of the projects that we bid, and of course in the atmosphere today, projects are coming in higher than the original estimates often. This project came in $2.5 million over the estimate. A lot of it had to do with the micro borings that we have to do, micro tunneling that has to go under the CSX tracks. Those costs have doubled over the last few years because of their specialty services. So that's really driving a lot of the increase. So what we're doing here is we're turning a 1.825 bond into a 4.75 bond million. There's a lot of contingencies built into that project. We don't want to come back and have to look at a bond again. So there's contingencies built in. The actual project, when it's done, it's going to be under 4.75, but we've built in all the contingencies into the contractor's budget. So it's all in here. Of that 4.75, 1.4 or so is in grants that's already received. Actually, it's a little bit more than that. Took 1.5 of that. And so more or less, the city's going to be, this bonding goes through the Environmental Facilities Corp, which like Heather says, it's not a typical bond. It's basically no interest bonds. The short term is 0 interest. The long term is minuscule interest. So it's, you know, it's money that comes through the state and the feds, and that, you know, basically they're able to do, because of the federal infrastructure bill and because of state dollars, they're able to offer these no-interest bonding. So the resolution here is to increase that from, again, from 1.825, which was previously authorized, to 4.575. I think I meant to say
Paul,
that.
could you just
Yep.
expand on where the work is gonna be done and over what time frame?
The work will start this season and should be done by, I think our substantial completion is the end of the year, right?
End of the year, yeah.
November timeframe.
And where's the work gonna be done?
The work, yeah, the work is basically along the State Street corridor. It's bringing, right now, all that stormwater over there is sent into Nail Creek before the railroad bridge, which could be problematic for flooding. This provides a corridor along State Street corridor on the, going across the street from Oriskany Street, going underneath the tracks and out right to the Mohawk. So it's a better point of stormwater relief out to the Mohawk, so it doesn't impact Nail Creek and the railroad bridge in that area. So it's an important point to bring stormwater to without.
It maximizes the capacity of other existing by not tying this large system into that.
Right.
The only thing that I can ask, can you explain the temporary connection and then the parallel 48-inch pipe that they're bringing in to there? 'Cause I think that's
Yeah.
kind of important component to explain
Yeah.
of why this.
Right now in green, right, is the temporary connection, which is basically what it's been doing, has been running alongside the railroad track, going and finding its way into Nail Creek.
I know, you can explain it to everybody else, I totally get why you're doing it. I love it, it's an important understanding to realize why that temporary
Yeah.
connection is important.
And it'll be some storms that this temporary connection, you know, a larger storm would be at capacity. And not only that, when we're dumping that amount of water in Rail Creek ahead of the railroad bridge at CSX, it could be a problem in a 50-year or 100-year storm.
Do you feel comfortable it's a 48-inch pipe that's going around that connection? Because that's the only thing I'm kind of confused about. See how it says parallel 48 inches?
That's all new.
That's all new?
Yeah.
Okay. So you feel comfortable that that water, is it?
Yeah, that was put in, yes, it's all been modeled, and the blue line is the 89.1 project, which then, you know, relieves that, all that extra water and brings it right to the Mohawk.
Good.
Yeah.
I just got a small little question.
Yeah.
Of course, we're alleviating some sewage, right? We're going down to the plant. Storm sewage, we're separating sewage and storm, or just storm? This is all, only thing is the stormwater?
They're originally,
So you, right, well, that's the intent, is to, right now, the plant takes in a massive amount of combined sewage.
I got you.
Yeah,
Let me
right.
get to my question. So
Yeah.
we're alleviating some sewage going to the plant, is that correct, with
Some
this
stormwater
project?
going.
Some stormwater, some
Right.
sewage, not stormwater, sewage.
Right, by the construction of stormwater lines, we're reducing the amount of combined sewage.
Okay,
This-
combined
this-
sewage.
This provides an avenue to take separated stormwater out of
So
the combined
stormwater is
sewage.
going right to the creek and sewage is more.
Yes.
So, do you believe that we should ask Peceni for a discount for sewer taxpayers?
If you didn't see that comment, you don't know Frank Miola.
All right, I'm trying to save the taxpayer $1 over here, and if we're investing some
they
tax.
helped us out a
If
lot more than.
if we're saving a tax dollar, maybe we could, they got a meter in there that meters the
Right,
sewage going into the
come on.
thing or
How
something?
about it keeps us out of,
It keeps us out of a consent decree,
yes,
correct?
All
yes.
right,
Which
all
we've
right,
already
all
been
right.
in front of, so it's not like this
All
makes it
right,
for
all
us
right,
being
all
in
right.
front.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
But it trends us in the right
Because
direction.
I wanna save
in
the taxpayer
relation
$1, you know
to
that for a
Consent
fact.
order.
The plant is, it's called a split flow plant now, so in wet weather, the city's flow goes to one direction and suburban flow goes to another.
Okay.
And basically they've doubled the capacity for the city sewers to go into that plant.
we're
So all we're doing is, by taking more stormwater out, we're giving the opportunity for the plant to treat more of the city's combined sewer, which is a big deal.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Any additional?
Just that,
Yeah.
congratulations, I mean, that's awesome that
Oh,
we've gotten to
thank
this
you.
point, I mean, that's huge.
Thank you.
You know, from where we started and where we are now, I know Debbie Day was you know, one of the big initiators to all this, so,
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to her too, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you guys for helping pick up everything.
This is the
that
last
she's done.
one of the mandates, and then I think we got
Yeah.
some good ones going
Yeah.
for some brownie
Yeah,
points
thanks.
that will really help, so.
Yeah, definitely engineering department.
You guys still
Yeah.
kept it under the bound rate, you know, the actual borrowing, so
Yeah.
that's good on the schedule, so.
Yes.
Good for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Any other additional discussions on the, on this bond? Okay, discussion's closed on that bond. As long as we're on bond, let's go to the one that's, in our committee. Let's jump to that one.
So, I don't have the detail for this tonight, I could go upstairs and get it for you. When the, even though he's been in all the staff meetings that we discussed all this, Frank Matolo, head of our IT department,
Mhm.
when we asked for what capital items needed to be funded, nothing came forward. It came forward after bond ordinances were provided to you for our total new project. And so, this got sent out. So I don't have the list in front of me. I don't think it's anything that can't wait another 2
So we
weeks.
can put in, leave it in
Yeah.
committee then?
Yep.
Okay,
And I'll get you the list.
very good. As long as Heather's here, let's get to the next, the E&A amendment report, number 5.
So, as you are aware, every so often I come down, sometimes with an E&A transfer, sometimes just to give an update, like we did during the budget, of what's been happening with our ARPA funding. To date, down at the bottom, we've expended or encumbered, and when I say encumbered, I mean the projects have been started or are imminent to be started, of 73%. So we're pretty excited by that. But what we're not excited by is the legislation that passed the federal government, the debt ceiling legislation. As part of that legislation, there was an indication that the feds would like to come back and sweep money that's not being used. And so that's part of where the mayor has been the past couple of years in trying to expend everything as quickly as possible to make sure that it was out of our hands and in being invested in our community. And so we took a look at, the staff has looked at for probably 2 months. We wanted to come down here 6 months ago, but because we were over in several projects, but we weren't ready. We hadn't received some of our bid openings, and we were still getting updates in prices. And until we hit the ground, like we did with this year with Varick Street, with Chancellor Park, and some of our other projects, we just we really weren't sure where estimates were. The good news is the supply shortages are really narrowing, so we're seeing items show up on time, and within a reasonable price point of where it was quoted and estimated. So we've got some overages, and I'm gonna go through and explain to you what those are tonight. But this is kind of where we're at. And I've always been open to questions. I know that there's been a number of questions from time to time. But if you could take a look at the resolution that E&A passed, I wanna start with not the from accounts, I wanna start with the to accounts. The first one is the Proctor Park Darg Park construction.
Okay.
And that's part of why Stephanie is here tonight. So when this project got started, we had surveyed actually the area before we started the project. We wanted to make sure the
A long time ago, though.
a long time ago, geotechnicals were done properly because we have, it's on a hill. We wanted to make sure that drainage was appropriate. When the contractor got on site, we realized that the survey that was done was wrong. And a significant amount of drainage improvements needed to be installed, which meant dirt, which meant grading, and a variety of other things. And this particular project, which started last year, the prices increased. We knew there'd be scaling up of some things from the fence to some of the other things on this project. This project is almost complete, but that came to a cost of $270,000.
The survey actually showed, that's where we were using for our dump site. So
Yeah,
all
or the tree, the green waste was all there.
the trees,
Yep.
so it wasn't that the survey was wrong, but I guess it was now, 10 years later, inaccurate because
Okay.
there was so much more material. So the initial area that we were expecting to impact was now nearly doubled because instead of hauling all that material, we graded it off.
Right.
So now we've got double the square footage to topsoil, to seed. We tried to get rid of the major slope that went onto the E.J. Herman Trail with the bridge. So in order to prevent the washout, we put proper riprap in. We saw some natural spring and it was completely washing it out, so we put in a DOT state grade, storm ditch with proper stone and piping to make sure all of that will no longer be wet, saturated, it can be maintained, mowable. And so that was a portion, as well as with the dog park in North Utica, paving that, getting that water captured, so that way we aren't having more runoff.
Do you have an actual spring in the park?
Yeah, I've never seen
Just
it.
constant
I see
water
it.
flowing right out the bank, and it was just washing out the topsoil, so, and it was actually during that couple weeks of dry weather, so we wanted to make sure that was maintained. We made the swale a little bit bigger to hold more
So
of
it
the
goes right
water.
into the ravine over there?
Yep, so a combination of the North Utica and then fixing the drainage. We wanted to make sure the E.J. Herman Trail will actually last for a long time.
Okay.
So that's the major impact, is just because there was more dirt, to minimize cost, we expanded where we were storing
So you had more
material.
excavating, more,
Yeah.
did you remove the dirt or just put,
We
relocate
pushed it all over, so that's why we doubled it. We were expecting to cover a certain area, and then we buried the trees, put the material in, and regraded it so we can have the parking lot and have it properly off of the South Park Drive.
Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I apologize. So when you actually go down, so we have the little bike trail coming from Proctor Park that goes down where the actual creek is, where the waterfalls are and stuff
Yes.
like that. The only thing that I'm concerned about is that you see a constant grade from the dirt falling
Mhm.
and all the bricks falling that are on that
That stone
center,
wall.
the storm
Yes.
wall. So I guess, you know, it's great that we've done all this work on top, but you see it diminishing constantly from the top.
This is on
part.
my wish list, so I'm so glad you mentioned it. It's a little bit more challenging to fix those walls.
Because I bring my kids down there all the time and it's beautiful.
It
It's probably,
is.
I mean, it's like peace and quiet to us. You watch the waterfalls coming down, it's fine, but I watch the walls and everything, all the sediment, it's
Especially
not.
on Albany side, I think it is.
Yes,
where you can
across,
see.
on the opposite side of
Yes.
where the road is, on the other side of
Yes.
the bridge. And that's the only thing that I guess I get concerned about, is because you have trees falling now, where
Yes.
even where the, you know, the new park that we built, it's every
Yes.
year, it keeps getting smaller and smaller and.
It is on my 2024 stormwater.
So can I just ask for
Yeah.
your suggestion, where do you go from there, I guess, if
It's
now
gonna
we're
require
building?
DEC, there's the large riprap you can see during heavy rain events. I mean, half the size of a car is moved 100 feet.
Right,
So, you know, this is a project that, to mitigate this, you know, restacking that stone, and I agree, and I had mentioned it too, you know, even if we can't maintain the walls, can we cut the trees to prevent the weight on the
Well,
walls?
the
to
trees are the
prevent-
worst part about it,
Yes.
because they keep falling down. I mean, they're there as like a way to get down to the creek now.
Unfortunately, this project didn't incorporate that portion.
Right.
But we are hopeful, we're hoping to put out a citywide tree contract that maybe we can be flexible if there is anything that we can do.
Because the trees were tagged, I mean, even a couple of years ago, and
That's
now
with
it's just half the
MVCC,
trees that are
they're-
down.
yeah.
I mean, I see that.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm more concerned if the fact that you have the dog park, I mean, if you're looking at the creek to the right and
Yep.
it going downstream, looking at the dog park, I mean, it's.
We fixed if you see.
I
it
watch,
from-
I mean, I
yeah.
used to do the E.J. Herman race, so I
Yeah.
used to take the dirt,
So it's a
the
lot
four-wheeler
better,
all
we've
around and stuff
eliminated the
like that.
slope, so I can say we maybe didn't mitigate the damages of what's there, but I can guarantee that what we did do to alter that area, and that's why we're asking, we did do this decision, is to make sure no runoff impacts to make that worse.
Right.
So we have proper drainage, we have riprap, we actually put the trail around the bridge, and we put topsoil, and then that one rain 2 weekends ago, we saw it, that we were like, you know what, let's be proactive, we put riprap along the trail, so that way nothing
Right.
washes out, we put proper connections to the creek that were already existing, so we didn't
Right.
need to call DEC, but we just reprofiled those ditches, so.
And like I said, the only thing I see that the trees are tagged, maybe just remove some of them so that it's not so
So the
heavy
tagged
on
trees
walls
aren't
that
for
are
the
going
removal,
down.
they're actually for like inventory.
I know, but if we
No,
know
I,
the number of them, I
yes,
mean, is that a
with, and that's the
possibility?
hope with the tree contract, is
Yeah.
to be able to eliminate dead trees, get rid of anything that's causing impact, not only for stormwater, but our
Yeah, it's even-
eyesores.
It's even rooted in the natural flow to everything too,
Right.
which is.
No, I
which is-
completely
So
agree.
just for clarity for you guys, what she's saying, a citywide tree contract is, we're exploring the option of having somebody catch us up on all our dead trees.
Oh, yeah,
And
which-
on all the
yeah,
stumps throughout the
yeah.
city.
Dave
And-
Short's
So that
been-
might be something else that comes up to the council,
Dave's-
because we're 5 years behind, right?
Dave Short's been working on that since.
Yeah.
With the help of.
But we
you
think
and
we're in a
everybody
position
here.
to do it
But it's
now.
not like we're starting new, like we've already had.
No,
this
it's just that
Right.
it's been
And
there,
we
no
just-
one's
right.
implemented putting it back out,
We only have a
so.
two-man tree crew, so I can't imagine them going in on top of all the other requests
And
from
that's
everybody
the
else.
point,
and
is
it's-
so my advocate is for the stormwater, but
that's all I'm
also,
saying is that we're spending this amount of money, just make sure that, you know, for our clarity and stuff like that, that we're at least looking at that, and I know you know that.
Absolutely,
And
no, those
I'm
are,
not,
yes,
you know,
no, we
questioning,
cleared
you
the
know.
trees that were close, I saw that was in reason.
Yeah.
I didn't want DEC coming to wonder what's going on with the creek, but I
100%.
can promise you, any runoff coming from the dog park has proper channels, there's actually a detention basin, we actually made a second little swale to prevent
And
it,
I saw
even
the
for an
other bridge that
overflow.
you guys, you know, you guys did the bridge going into where the actual dog park is.
Yes.
I mean, that was pretty rough, and it looks like
Yeah.
it's in a lot better shape, so, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, somebody else? Oh, okay. Moving on to the pavilion. So the pavilion over behind Proctor Park, or behind that parking lot, was our very first project. Very first project. Our engineering department, really, it was led by Dave Short. Dave Short came up with an estimate, and when we did the initial ARPA allocations, we used Dave Short's estimate.
Heather, which one are you talking about?
The second one.
FT Proctor.
FT.
The pavilion at the back
Ludlow.
of FT Proctor.
The bathrooms?
Ludlow?
Where everybody walks. FT.
I know, but I'm trying to think, cause I'm pretty sure that, was that the one that Assemblywoman Buttonsean helped us out with?
Well, she got us some money for it.
Right, so
Yeah.
it's not just full ARPA funding, that's the one that she
Yes.
had
Yeah.
allocated,
Yes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was
Yes.
a decent amount of money.
I think it was
to
like
make her-
$60,000.
Yeah, it wasn't
Well,
that
I mean,
much.
I think the whole project was supposed to be 180 at the time for just.
Right,
wanna
right.
know something?
She was helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's more than that now, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm just, it's not just something that the city funded.
Right,
on
right,
their
right,
own.
right.
It started the project because she helped us with the allocation of funding for
Yes.
that.
So, so when this came about, it was really a concept from Dave Short, who, you know, encouraged the mayor, so we came down, we did an allocation for it. The allocation was for the building itself, it came as a kit. So, as the months went by, the kit was on order for a year, blah, blah, blah. Then it was found, well, we have to build it, we have to have electric, we have to have utilities, we have to have sidewalks to get to it, we have to do site prep. And so none of that was considered when this was done. And I will say it was our first project out. Dave Short was very excited about it, right? And so I went with the number that he gave us. It was wrong. We
It
didn't
was
include
just
that.
for the pavilion,
Yeah.
not for the
The
construction
installation,
and.
not for the utilities. So that's over.
And the good news there is that we're including the parking lot there, so it's not just gonna be dirt and stone, it's gonna actually.
With proper drainage.
Nice, it'll be nicer than it was
Well,
before.
Proctor-
It was a
the
big
pavilion parking lot.
So I just wanna make sure that it's still.
Second one down.
will.
That,
Yeah.
we're
Two.
actually
Yep,
updating
where it says
it.
two, second one
That's
down.
part of this.
We're updating it, it'll be better paved than it was before.
With drainage.
Trust me when I tell you.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Okay, the next one, splash pad and water slides. This account number was originally just a splash pad. The splash pad is going over behind the playground, new playground equipment at Proctor Park. So, as things have developed over the winter, the mayor had a wish. He said, I'd really like to see, he had seen it around in Colony and in Watervliet, I think Watervliet, water slides. And so he asked the engineering department to go out and get a number and get an engineer, special engineering firm, to see if that's something that we could do. The numbers came back, it was actually a little bit less than I think $750, but our splash pad was over budget. It would be 2 water slides, it would be located at Buckley Pool. And he just thought for that part of the community over there, that would be something that would be really awesome for our young people to take advantage of, and to get more excited about the pools.
So the slide will be up and they will go slide right into Buckley Pool?
No.
No,
Or
it's actually
separate?
its own separate entity.
It's independent of the pool.
With its own fence, so if the pool's closed, the slide can still
So
function.
one of the big things, I think I should elaborate here, one of the reasons why we consider a water slide is because, you know, these were lessons that we learned during COVID. When we have chlorine shortages, lifeguard shortages, we've had to close down our pools. Each of the last 5 years, we've had to close down our pools because of either repairs or shortages. And Chet's working very hard to try to fix those, but you got hot times in our summer where people don't have any way to cool off. So a water slide doesn't require 15 staff the way a pool does. It requires 2. Somebody at the top and somebody at the bottom, right? Because it doesn't go into a pool that's more than 2 feet deep. It's actually an endless pool that pushes pressure at the end. So this was something that we can guarantee you with a splash pad and a water slide that the people of this community can stay cool no matter what the weather is. It's kind of a set it and forget it thing, 2 staff. So it made a lot of sense for us to try to come up with pool alternatives in case we hit those contingencies where the pools aren't working.
How about hours of operation? About like, I know we usually the last week or the last 2 weeks in August, when the kids go back to school, the pools are closed. Is this something that we maybe could stay open to?
That's something we'll talk to the council about, but it's not as expensive because it has a recirculating system.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, you don't
But
have
it's
to.
not about,
No.
I don't mean to intrude, it's not so much about expense as it is about the lifeguards, right? Because all the
Well, I'm
college,
just saying, is it,
our
I mean,
college
the way
people
you're
go back.
talking
But the
about it.
interactive splash pad
Yeah.
can be something that can be
But
run
that's a good
during
point,
longer hours.
Councilman.
And it's also a parent
Yeah.
Right,
resource, like Chadwick's doesn't. They
Yes.
have to have a lifeguard on guard. to do
exactly.
Right.
For the splash pad, but the.
We
The
haven't-
water slide too, we don't need a lifeguard
No,
Oh, okay.
it's convenient.
because it's not deep enough.
Yeah.
How tall is this water slide?
20 feet.
20 feet, 25 feet.
20, I think.
It's huge. Look, if you saw
I
it.
take that back, we're definitely gonna need a lifeguard. I take my statement, all right?
No, but
Because I'm not letting my kids go to the
But we
apartment,
don't,
so.
listen, the physics of it, right, we really went into dodging this. It's huge, right? It's like a water safari style water slide. It's gonna be free, right? We could have charged, like Watervliet does. We went to Watervliet and looked at theirs, and people are skeptical because they haven't seen them. But number one, the bar that you go underneath, as long as you got a worker that's safer, the physics of it is your momentum going under that bar, you couldn't stand up if you tried, right? So the slide takes you down and it takes you into an endless pool that jets pressure into you to stop you at the bottom of the slide. So it's not, there's not a huge pool for you to hit your
I'm
head.
gonna give you my suggestion. That is obviously gonna be operated by somebody that is lifeguard trained, because that's something that we can't do. The actual splash pad could be used from dusk till dawn by a
Right.
But the Department of Health in Oneida County in New York State certify the staffing and the resources for it. It's one of the most regulated, that's why we need a special firm to do it, because they're worried about it. So like when we bring you guys something, it's not because we figured, hey, this was here. It's because we had professionals look into it and go through, there's a 6-month permitting process, just to get a design approved. So it will be safe, and it will save us money and time on staff because it doesn't require 15 staff.
Yeah, but you're still, but as far as doing it, that's great, but we're still keeping the pools open too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this
So
isn't
you're
in
gonna-
lieu of,
this
it's
is-
an addition and
It's an addition
hopefully
too.
for a
Okay,
longer
right.
period of
But you
time.
keep saying we're gonna eliminate staff, you're gonna need more
No,
staff.
well, but when the pool staff goes back to college, or before the pool's open, like right now, pools aren't open yet, right? We could have the water slide running, right? And as an alternative, if we're low on chlorine or staffing for the pool, we could still run these things. So I'm not saying instead of, I'm saying it's a,
Right.
it's a good accessory and it's also a good contingency.
Yes.
Was it the one slide or the two?
It's 2 slides.
So the only other question, are they two separate water lines? So if you need to turn off the slide and still work the splash pad, is that acceptable?
They're actually
Oh, yeah.
completely separate, the.
Oh,
the
so that's
buck-
perfect.
Yeah,
So
They're
that-
across the
that-
street
that
from each
actually-
other.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're across the street from each other.
the splash pad doesn't require any chlorine.
Right.
The slide is fed from the same water main
Right.
as the pool.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanna know if they're gonna be adult-only hours?
Well, but this is, that's joking.
They gotta pay to be adults.
It's funny, so this is one of the projects, the last projects to be fun.
On a hot
But
day?
it's one of the things the council should consider, because one of the things you think about is this, is like, could you permit it for birthday parties? Right, is there gonna be a fee for non-residents? Like, there's things that you can think about of, hey, how do you wanna use this thing? Right
Authorize
now, the
beer and
mayor's
wine
thought
in
is to just leave it
conjunction
open,
It's
but the
gotta be
council could govern it, you know?
It's gotta be open. It's been open over 20
So the next item is the citywide housing needs assessment. It just went over budget by 5,700, and that's the end of that line. That'll be closed.
Where's that?
That after the water
Fourth
slides.
line down.
Oh, the citywide housing need assessment?
Yep. The fifth one is City Parks ADA compliance. So, as with everything else, once we got into these parks, you know, we recently settled litigation, and we've been doing just a fantastic job, our engineering department, in getting the ADA improvements. And so, because of all the work that we're doing at the Buckley Slide, the mayor thought it behooved us to do a little more on ADA over in that part of the world. And so it isn't just 200,000 for that. It's just when we got into some of these parks, we realized that things were a little more expensive and we need to go a little further than we thought. And so that's why we're adding 200,000. Traffic light, Court and Whitesboro Street. Stephanie, you wanna talk about this?
Sure. The Court and Whitesboro Street intersection currently has a wide intersection that blends. Don't really know how compliant the light itself is going with that function. You know, it's confusing, the light angles at different directions. So Burmaster actually wanted to implement having more ADA accessibility in that area to be able to continue pedestrian traffic. So we have, similar to Varick with Spring Street, that intersection Sunset where it all merges, we're isolating the street, we're adding more curb and narrowing down the width of the road so that way it's safer for traffic, for the police officers to do proper compliance. And so the light itself is $162,000, and then we'll be doing the groundwork in order to make that accessible.
Can you just like forward us like a tiny assessment of like what that?
The drawing?
Like,
Sure,
the drawing.
yeah.
I mean, please,
I don't-
just so that we can have a visual.
Yeah.
Sometimes everybody talks about stuff and then it comes out
Yep.
totally different.
Yeah,
than
when you
what
come
we
into
had.
when you're coming up from Whitesboro onto Court, it kind of swoops, and it's just gonna be more like a T.
Yeah, I know
So-
exactly.
So
Yep,
there's
I'll get
two
the drawing.
things, there's two things you should know about. One, we're already doing on Columbia Square, which you guys are gonna get legislation because Stephanie has some ideas of what the traffic
Got it.
pattern should be, so we wanna make one of the streets a one-way, so you guys need to look at that.
That's a
And then the,
area to-
yeah, and then the Whitesboro intersection, those were Councilman Burmaster's, expenditures, that's what he wanted to fix. And then when we went into it, when we studied the issue, the traffic light was out of compliance anyway.
Yes.
So,
Like Genesee Street.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
Let's not go there.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm gonna ask, and I gotta be honest with you, like, I have no problem when I'm.
We're just getting ready. We have me and the
Oh, I'm
judge have
sorry.
a question, but after, no,
One
Steve
minute.
on the floor. So let's-
The only thing that I would
let's
say
just
is
wait.
that I just would like actual, like,
Drawing.
drawings, like,
Yes.
cause guess what, I pass stuff and then I get something totally different of what I'm passing.
Yep.
And I'm done with that, so
Yep.
I just like actual drawings.
Yeah,
of
I
what-
have all the renderings. I have at least Court and White, or Columbia, but I will get you the other one too.
That would be nice to get that before I feel comfortable.
Judge, you have the floor.
He has a question about the E&A transfer related to the ARPA projects, not the current sewer projects.
Okay.
Okay. As you know, we have a charter. You didn't get a Buckley pool, a Fitzgerald pool, or Addison Miller pool without legislation from the Common Council that created those objects because it's in the charter and you're the only one that has the power to do so. Now, as I understand it, first of all, I will chastise to some extent, a lot of legislation comes here, never comes to me in violation of our rules. So I never get to study it. So I get to ask embarrassing questions to myself and everybody else at a meeting. Now, as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to build, the city of Utica, behind Buckley Pool, am I correct?
Alongside.
A water slide.
Yes.
And what authority, other than some legislation that comes from grants and all that, from the City of Utica Common Council that will be part of its historical record and history, where the Common Council of the City of Utica approved such a construction of a facility?
It's,
All the other facilities we have are approved and created. In fact, we even shut one down for a long time, I think. I don't know, is Fitzgerald ever operating ever again?
Yes.
It is? Well, it was shut down for quite a while.
It
But that came.
was tore
in-
down and then rebuilt.
That, it was rebuilt and also was named by the Common Council.
Yes.
And that's what the charter provides. This is another structure in the city that will be of permanent nature during the summertime, I believe, right?
yeah.
And I see no legislation that involved you, 9 councilmen, approving such a project. Other than money, that has nothing to do with it. The history of Utica is what you've created. You created, that's where the history comes from. Not a lot of money and fancy bond work and all the other things. So if they build this thing, which I think is a very good idea, I thought they should have built one on the Parkway years ago. But in any event, if they build it, then they'll probably name it again, which is solely within the province of the Common Council of the City of Utica. It seems to me the bypassing of what your stature is as a legislative body keeps being continued. And although it may be cumbersome to some, those steps are to be taken. So I sit here as your attorney, I see nothing where you created a water slide in the back of Buckley Pool. Somebody else did, but you didn't. And if you go back to look to the history of this 10 years from now, or even the naming of it, is anybody gonna come to you and say, oh, by the way, we'd like to name it in honor of so-and-so, which is your province only? Somebody gonna do that, or is just somebody just gonna name it like recently that happened? People can't name things in Utica without legislation from the county council. So I know that seems, well, to some of you, that's not new. You've been here a long time. I just sit here and I feel that there are times when you people are just bypassed. You're always told about money, how it's going and everything else, and how you figure out how you're going to get it. Quite all right.
You have a right to be concerned.
Pardon me?
You're
Well, I have a right to be disturbed because there is no legislation that creates a water slide behind Buckley Pool by the Common Council of the City of Utica.
So, Judge, I'd like to just add something first before.
And don't
before
tell me
any
about
ex-
some
before
federal
any
or state
explanation is
legislation
given.
that has nothing to do with it.
There has never been once on this ARPA projects where we ever tried to bypass the council on anything. If it happened.
I didn't say you bypassed
Well,
the
you used the
council.
word bypass.
I'm saying
I
you
just wanna
bypassed
finish.
me,
Right.
and
We've
therefore I
never-
learned, let me
we've
tell you
never tried to
something.
bypass
I'm learning
anyone.
about this tonight.
Well, I've been at budget meetings and I've passed this out. I have done
Did
this
you all
probably
know you were
6
gonna
or
have
7 times.
a water slide constructed behind Buckley Pool? And
But-
what the dimensions of it are, where the water's coming from? You just said, didn't you say you can't open Buckley because the water's screwed up?
No.
In previous years.
Is
that's
is
their
the
time.
Buckley Pool open?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's over.
Is it gonna be open on
Yeah.
July
Yeah.
first?
Plenty of
Yes.
chlorine, we changed the
I'm not
chlorination
asking
type.
you, I'm asking the
Yes,
codes
they're
commission.
installing the
Yes.
chlorination units, the
Is
Engler's
Buckley
Well,
connected.
I have an answer though.
Yes, yes. I was
Okay.
talking about previous years.
Well, all the water that's coming for this project is being supplied by the Board of Water Supply, right?
Right.
Upstairs. And all of that is configured in this design. Do you have did anybody bother to provide
splash
the
pad-
Common Council with a rendering of what you're doing? Is there a rendering of what I don't
God bless
know
you.
about?
It's always.
I did a press release on it. It was in the
Huh?
state of the state. It was in the state of the city. I did a press release on it. It was on the brochure that we handed out.
No,
It was,
just ask, that's
it was
my
approved
question.
in previous.
Is there a rendering
Yes.
of what's gonna be built behind
Yes.
Buckley Pool?
Yes.
And why wasn't it submitted to the Common Council for approval?
We don't submit renderings generally for approval.
No, you put it them to think about.
Right, and the point of order, in which I will understand, and that's what I just said to her, like.
Well, I just think,
We just have so much stuff that has changed once we pass it, and it's not what we've actually seen. I mean, Genesee Street is a huge problem that we have now, that, sometimes the council passes stuff, it gets striped, stuff like that. The only thing that I understand what the judge is saying is that before you expect us to pass anything like that, and the final say, any additional funding, please provide it for us, because we did not get any of that information. I mean, I could say for myself, I haven't. No, we haven't. I have not got one rendering of what it's supposed to look like, and I don't think anybody on this body has.
I'm still waiting for the final drawing.
Right,
for
and
the
that's what
slide.
I'm
Just-
saying, so I
I-
think we're all in
But
agreement
just
to that it's not like
I have an
you
eye,
against us, or
so,
here against
but,
us against
yeah.
you, it's just, it would be
On
nice
E&A.
to have it.
well, I want to make one last point. It is and it has been the practice, the attorney for a body such as this, who remains silent when projects are discussed, may later on be severely criticized. When they had the situation in Buffalo, where all this housing was built on a dump, and hell had to be eradicated and everything knocked down, the only person who told them you can't build housing there when the project came before the Board of Education and all these other people was the Board of Education lawyer. He said, my father said that was a dump and you have to clean it first. Well, many years later, everything got infected and he tore it all down. I protect my status as your attorney by raising these questions. I don't require that you follow anything I say, they're not mandates. But I sit here and I see a project with no rendering, no idea what the cost is to the taxpayer after it's done, how many people have to maintain it, who has to maintain it, you know, how many people are gonna be there for security purposes to make sure nobody's injured and all of that, and where's that coming from? This is part of all of a big budget procedure, and I know that the budget director of the city of Utica, the
All right.
young lady sitting there, is a very competent person. She knows, when it comes to the numbers, she knows everything. There are times, though, I think that as far as the procedures, that's my business. And I'm just saying to you, I would have been more comfortable if I was seeing this project, which you are gonna approve, and you eventually will maybe give it a name. You don't have to give it a name, but I have an idea somewhere along the way you would. I think it's a wonderful idea, long past due. And if you've got the money, fine. I'm just trying to talk about legislative integrity. And that's what's always gonna come from me while I'm sitting here. If I get in the way and seem like I'm blocking things, I'm
You have
not
to get it
doing
now.
that, that's
Send it
not
to us
my
later.
intention. My intention is to
Just send it to us
have
later.
you ask the question, is
I don't wanna
where
stop the
is my
project when he's
picture?
done.
I don't wanna make this not.
I know.
Okay?
All right,
Sermon.
thank you, Ron. Of course, we don't want to stop any excavating or any parts of these projects. Stephanie, would you mind sharing all the specifics of the projects, the details, the groundwork, the plot plans of the projects, the locations?
Yes.
Through emails, each separately throughout the, each ARPA project throughout separately, and please put the number of the project so we know.
Just one point of order, though. I mean, she just said that she didn't have the final renderings.
I
I
understand
have
what
a
she has.
rendering. I have a
Samantha,
rendering, but
I'm
not
not
like the
debating that,
technical.
it's
I'm
just
not-
what she has,
The
just what
only-
she has.
The only thing that I'm gonna ask, though, is that the council can approve it contingent that they get the plans and everything makes sense. I mean,
That's absolutely.
I mean, these are only transfers.
So-
The
yeah,
money's
that's
still
what I was gonna
originally,
say. This is
the money's
already-
still in the account, it's not a problem, but I think that the council should at least pass a contingent that they get something in front of them.
Absolutely, and
Because
that's,
I
and
haven't
that's what she
seen
said she's
anything.
gonna share. She's
So,
already gonna
I
share.
think that that's fair.
If
for the
there's
rest of
any
the project.
specifics we need for any other of the projects, please contact Stephanie directly if you guys have any questions. We're the,
Mike Mahoney.
all right, call Mike Mahoney first,
CC me on the email.
Yes.
How about that?
and we'll get the specifics on the projects in each of our districts. So, we know the specifics and, we can move forward. And, right now, because of the problems that we're having with, excavating and getting people to work and getting these jobs done, I do believe that my colleagues should move these projects forward. And if there's any problems with the specifics that we do see later on, please get the attention to Mike Mahoney and we can go from there. Is there any questions?
Does anyone have specific ones
I-
that they'd like?
The only thing that you've gotta understand is that this is a transfer.
Right.
This is not approval of the project,
I would
okay?
like-
Right, we
So
already
that's-
approved the
Just take
project.
a deep breath, it's
I would
not
like-
that
Right, we
big.
already approved the
You guys
project.
already approved it without us being involved in it, so
So-
that's fine. You guys had your little committee, you know, we got these projects, I'm breaking chops. But obviously, the transfer is what's most important, but just give us an update to what's going on.
Wait,
That's all
Joe,
we're asking.
President, then you. Joe, Mr. President, you have the floor.
I just wanted to know, because we're talking about projects, new projects, renderings, et cetera. The dog park is already underway. It
Yes,
was
it
already
is.
done. Proctor Park Pavilion underway, in process. The splash pad project has now had the water slides added to it, but the splash pad also already planned and underway. The needs assessment, that's a small amount anyways. That was a separate line item. ADA compliance, again, that's in addition to the current work we've already been doing
Normal
under
process
ADA
for the
compliance,
state, yes.
that
Yep.
we increased for the ARPA. And then the rest of them, the last three, I should say, are new, but all the other ones were underway. Liberty Park, the Court Whitesboro Street traffic light was needed in additional,
Right.
but again, that was more infrastructure work.
Okay.
So as far as what was already underway versus what is new, I just wanted to iterate through that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the
All right,
projects are already
great.
initiated. Joseph?
Yes. So, Stephanie, Heather, I'm gonna just talk about the Seymour Park.
Can I just?
Oh, you're gonna go through line by
Yeah.
line?
Because we only got
Okay.
15 minutes
I'll be
left,
brief.
Joseph.
I'll be brief. The next one is Libertyville Park. As you're all aware, the chimney fell down. It was our responsibility. We had to hire someone to go in and fix it. That was quite expensive. But also, on Thursday, we'll be opening up a bid for Liberty Bell Park and work that's gonna be done behind the fountain. And estimates come in significantly high, and we believe this number would cover that.
Next Thursday.
Yeah, okay, next Thursday. Park improvements, various. That, we're asking for $100,000 to set aside for park improvements. Because we are seeing some overages. We're pretty confident our estimates are pretty secure at this moment, but we are putting that there, or asking your consideration. Hurt Playground, which I misspelled, it's H-I-R-T.
We fixed it on this one.
Okay. The mayor had been by there. He was a little startled to see that it was in such disrepair. He did send Commissioner Short over to take some trees down and try to spiff it up. Engineering department is working to isolate some additional playground improvements over there, new swings, perhaps a slide, and we're pricing those out right now. And then last up is Seymour Park. Seymour Park, there's a lot going on with Seymour Park. We have the opportunity to put pickleball courts in where one of the tennis courts is. We also have that field that's over there that needs additional landscaping. As you may recall, 2 or 3 years ago, we went in and we leveled it off, we did grading, but the type of ground cover that we didn't have the money to do it. And so we're not quite sure exactly what we're gonna do at Seymour Park yet. We've been meeting with Councilman Beatrice over there, trying to isolate what to do, but that's why we wanted to put that in as placeholder.
Okay, Joseph.
Yes, I just have, Heather, a couple questions for you. So, I remember a while back, I think Councilman DeBrango, Councilman Williamson, we were all upstairs, and you guys gave us this master plan. You were gonna fix Wanko Field, and you were gonna fix Seymour Field. So I'm grateful for everything you guys done, but like when I had my ARPA money, I spent my ARPA money on, where the dog park was and all that. That Seymour Field, I just wanted to, let people know, the mayors know, everybody knows, that's our main clog in the city for Little League, for everything. These people are parking in dirt, they're parking, it needs to be, they have traveling teams that come here every week to go to that field. We need to do that, and I'm just curious, kinda like what the judge is talking about. You guys told us we were gonna do that. What happened in that project? What happened when, you were there with me. Why didn't that stuff get done?
So I don't know that the mayor committed to doing everything. Let me just finish. What the mayor did commit to was taking inventory of the ball fields. We have several in West Utica that aren't up to snuff, aren't being used. They're not being used, but we keep them open. And so we go in and we cut the grass and we weed eat, spend days doing that, and then they're not used. And at that same time, Mike Gentile had come in, I don't think you were at that meeting, had come in to talk about what his priorities were for the big fields, but those were his priorities. So the mayor.
Just point of order,
Yeah.
he was representing as district administrator for Utica Little.
He was,
Thank you.
Councilman.
Okay, I just wanted to put that out there. Okay.
And so the mayor did make a commitment that he would take a look at those fields and come up with a list of improvements. That has not, he knows the improvements that need to be made. Have we isolated funding for them at this point? No.
And one of the parking lots was done last
Well,
year.
it was, but it was, that was part of my
Yes,
ARPA
it
money,
was.
but it was done with millings.
Yes.
Okay, it was done, and I was happy to do that at the end, and you guys,
Yes.
okay, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm glad everything, and he's been there, he cut a lot of trees down. We do know about it, but that's important, that's an important part of our area. For 3 years, I've been sitting here telling you guys that field. I remember when I was running for council, it was a big press release, we got a field in North Utica. When I kept wanting to get it fixed, which I'm glad you're doing something now, they would say, we're not gonna fix it until somebody takes ownership of it, they would tell me. And nobody's gonna take ownership of a field that was there. Now, you guys, it seems like we have a plan, we're gonna use it as a backup soccer field for practicing and stuff like that. But that's my only concern. It just, it's kinda like, on the same tone.
I will say to you, and this is not to placate you. There are additional funds within this ARPA money, right? If you look down at the bottom under,
Unallocated?
No, well, it's not the unallocated, but also under FTEs for our general fund and also for COVID COVID healthcare money. So there's still money in there. That doesn't mean
That
that,
you may be able to do some stuff.
right, but we'll
Okay.
definitely take the message back to the mayor.
No, he
Okay.
knows.
Yeah, I
mean,
know,
he
but I'll
knows.
remind him.
And I'm not saying it in a
Okay.
bad way, I'm
I
just
know.
confused. I mean, I would have did different things. You know, I might have thought about doing
So I
something
just want to go
different.
through
Thank
the
you.
revenue portion really briefly.
Okay.
Under brownfield remediation, we had allocated $1.5 million. We don't have any brownfield projects in front of us at this moment.
Okay.
And we've also allocated quite a bit of money in CDBG. There's money sitting there for brownfields if anybody comes forward tomorrow.
Okay.
As I mentioned, pulling $500,000 from, there's $750,000 sitting there from city COVID and healthcare and protection. $250,000, which I believe there's 500 sitting there for reimbursement for hiring. We can't just use that money to put in our general fund and increase our fund balance. There's legal and accounting fees that we didn't use. And then lastly, the skate park. The skate park was budgeted, I believe, at $2 million. The park on Lincoln Ave is almost complete. The one on Proctor Park is being done right now. We've updated our estimates, and we feel very confident that those projects are gonna come in below 1.6. So that's why we pulled from those categories. It was a thoughtful process with UED, with the mayor, with engineering, with Marcus. This wasn't just let's move this money around. Lastly, under also down at the bottom, which the Board of E&A approved this morning, when the initial ARPA allocations were allocated, there was allocation for Harbor Point soccer fields, and it was quite a bit of money. It was like $4 million. It was never meant to build a $4 million soccer field, ever, down at the harbor. And that was for land that we were looking to acquire from National Grid that was contaminated. National Grid is not ready to lease us that land yet. And when they do so, there's gonna be a lot of contingencies to go along with that. So we kind of focused more so on the promenade over the past 2 or 3 years. Those prices kind of skyrocketed. I think, Marcus, we announced that 2 or 3 weeks ago, so that people can get down to the water. There'll be a dock that will go down that everybody could go down. You wanna go down and fish off the dock, you can fish off the dock. You can kayak. And so the waterfront promenade is a pretty spectacular thing. So all I'm asking, for complete transparency, you'd never know, but I felt it was important, I brought it up to E&A this morning, that we change that title from Harbor Point Soccer Fields to Harbor Point, because that was the mistake between Brian Thomas and myself.
Heather, the only question that I have though is that didn't the city apply for grant funding for that actual development on
Yeah.
that point? So I just wanna make sure that whatever grant that the Harbor Point Committee applied for, cause I know even when I was on there, they applied for several grants for that,
Yeah, we didn't get it.
where the soccer field was supposed to be.
Yeah. We didn't get it.
Even if we didn't get it, I mean, I hope that the Harbor Point Committee doesn't stop trying though either.
Oh, they're not.
So, you know what I mean? So
They're
just
applying
as,
for grants.
Yeah.
no, I know they are,
We still
I know
have the
they are,
soccer
but,
field, and we still
you
have
know,
some
I just
control
think
of
that
some
that's
other land
something.
down there, like right next to, where Kirk Hughes, the creamery, right to
Yeah.
the left, where that
Yeah.
fenced in
Yeah,
parking
I
lot,
know-
that's
I know
ours.
exactly where it is.
Yeah,
And
that's
even
ours too.
National Grid at that time was supposed to help us with that property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just, let's keep harping on them too, to
Yeah.
make sure that we're not
But
just
I
spending our own
wanted to show
money for that too.
transparency that that's.
Yeah,
where the
which-
There's a lot. And 2 things, this might just be.
I was on the Harbor Point Committee and it was
Yeah,
never.
that's true.
a
This
subject
might
yet,
just
so.
be, I just don't know that the public know this or got this from our press conference. Councilman Beatrice was there. It opens up the water to the public. I mean, so people see a fence around now and we get a lot of complaints that the fence are there. When this project is done, you will be able to access the harbor for the first time in a long time.
With all due respect, I don't think that anybody really got that from it. I mean,
Right.
It was a little confusing to know that the marketplace that was being opened.
No, I agree. That's why I said it now. And then the second thing is, because the people speak and, but the second thing is, I feel obligated to say, and there's really no reason to say it, but I feel obligated. With our skate park, everything's coming in over budget. And Spone Ranch came here, they fell in love with our skaters community, and they did more for less. I mean, they did more than we asked them to do for less money than we allocated for them to do because of our skater community. And he had a joy working with them, and they had nothing but compliments for the skaters that were here. And I just want to give them credit for doing extra, because not a lot of people do extra nowadays, especially with the prices that we're paying for everything else.
All right, council, we do have other pieces of legislation. I'd like to wrap up the discussions on this. The bond ordinance, of course, if it's not unanimous, please make a motion to refer to committee. In addition to that, the E&A transfer, that is an ordinance that needs to be unanimous. If not, please make a motion to refer to committee. Our next piece of legislation is ordinance number 2. And that's concerning a speed limit on the parkway, I think.
I can explain this one actually. if
Please,
you'd
go
like.
ahead, Mr. President, you got the floor.
So, the portion of Pleasant Street that is in between the houses, behind the parkway and the reservoirs. So this is Pleasant Street behind, just in front of the reservoirs,
Okay,
okay?
I know what it is.
The south side of that road is in New Hartford. The line is literally down the road, middle of the road.
Splits, yeah.
Yes.
Reservoir size, New Hartford.
Correct. While the city absolutely only in school zones will change the speed limit, right? It's a 30-mile-an-hour city speed limit unless in school zones. This has presented an interesting situation where there's a school zone on the New Hartford side and it's 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
And there's also some other signage on the New Hartford side which is 20 miles an hour, and it's made it very difficult to enforce anything because the other half of the road is in Utica and is the city speed limit. So we discussed this with all the residents and went through police. This has been months actually. Actually, Mark Williamson was also involved with this like last summer. And it's finally through the police department where we found a way and verified everything with New Hartford. So the portion between Tilden and Memorial Parkway, whereas Tilden's a T.
Yep.
And I double checked this because it was a little confusing when you read it. Memorial Parkway just butts up against Pleasant Street. It's not a T.
Right,
That's why the legislation reads a little confusing. But that span will be changed to 20 miles an hour for the specific reason of matching the neighboring municipality's speed limit. That's it.
All right, so this goes to, from Pleasant Street. Why don't we go from Mohawk Street? Cause
No, it goes from Tilden,
why don't you go into Tilden to Mohawk Street?
Tilden and Mohawk.
Yeah, because Mohawk goes right into it.
If you look at the map, it's Memorial Parkway.
It
I
is?
thought the same, Mohawk goes up.
Yep.
But it's actually Memorial Parkway. Because of the way the map lays out,
Okay.
they wanted to make sure that that's where the actual end was,
Is
so
this-
that they could put up a sign for 30 again once it goes on.
All right, you're gonna also put this in the school zone area? Is that in the school zone area?
So the school
close
zone
to
is
school
marked.
zone.
The school zone is marked. It just says school, but that's on the New Hartford side. We don't have to do anything with that. All we need to do is match our side of the road to 20 miles an hour. That's it.
Okay,
Has an email set out.
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other additional discussion? Okay, discussion on number 2 is completed. Again, this isn't ordained, right?
This isn't our.
Yes, this needs unanimous. If it's not, please make a motion to refer to committee. Our next piece, we have 2 tree advisory nominations. Celeste, you have the floor to discuss 3 and 4.
These
I'm
are
sorry, go
actually,
ahead.
these are the ones from the mayor.
The only thing that I'm gonna ask is that we kind of put these all into committee. I would like an interview process. We do that with every board appointment.
That's fine.
Have them come in, so that's the
Okay.
only thing I'm gonna ask with 3, 4, 7,
7 and 8.
Would your motion
Kind of see their
refer to
background.
That's
and-
fine, yeah.
And what they have to offer.
Did we send anything out looking for tree advisory people?
No.
I didn't see anything go out.
No.
So I'm not sure why one common councilor versus looking at all the other appointments.
Okay, would you mind refer?
Nope, that's fine.
Advertising?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
our next one is ordinance number 6, and to be honest with you, colleagues, I did not get a chance to recheck everything. I know our clerk does an excellent job, but I just want to recheck just to make sure, and I'd like to
Frank,
Just-
I got one.
shoot.
I mean, are we gonna put something out and then?
We should advertise.
Where? I mean, that's fine,
We
but
usually do it just in an email, just let the media take it, our
Oh.
Facebook page, whatever. I mean, that's how we normally do it
That's
with
fine.
any board appointment, so.
OD?
All
right.
Just to let them know that
Go
was
over with our
advertised
clerk
for
or
the
whatever
appointment.
verbiage you like in there.
Thank you.
And number 6, I'd like to refer to committee so I can just make
Thank
sure
you.
everything's checked.
I was gonna refer.
Any
to
other-
anyway.
The number 8 and 9, of course, we have to refer to committee because those are also appointments for
7
this,
and 8.
no, 7, 8, yes. 7, 8 also refer to committee because they're appointments to the boards too.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
No. 5-minute break?
Meeting closed, 5-minute break. Thank you.
One question.
It is 7:10, June 21st, 2023. I'm going to call this Common Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Irvin, Beatrice, Williamson, Classimo Testa, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business this evening is the minutes of the previous meeting. The previous meeting was actually a special meeting, along with our previous regular meeting. Clerk and Deputy Clerk, have those both been posted to E-Code 360? Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion from the floor?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes, please, Mr. President.
We have a second? I'm going to go with Aiello. Any opposed? The minutes have been accepted. They are posted to E-Code 360 for the public and anyone else to view. Thank you. We have no properties and or legislation for public hearing this evening. Is that correct? Thank you very much. Next order of business is public comment period. We have 6 speakers signed up this evening. The first is Jared Tuff. If you could please come forward. The Common Council's provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
Jared Laurel Tuff. I was here a couple weeks ago and I spoke about the gentrification and displacement, the discrimination and racism that my people are facing in Utica. And only thing we got was maybe some excuses. Maybe Joseph said the reasons why. The reasons is you can't really say because it's not affecting you. You have to ask someone like me. And the reasons is because you take immigrants and you dump them in the neighborhoods that we live, and you give them an unequal amount of support. And maybe not the city particularly, which the city does, but there's other organizations too. You don't dump them in the Caucasian neighborhoods. And then, you know, there's things like our parks and our schools, the way you play with them and do whatever you want with them. You took Roosevelt School and built an apartment complex. We need home ownership in our community. We don't want to keep being displaced. And we love other races. Our arms are open to the immigrants, but we don't want to be stepped over for them. You know, and racism plays a lot. Like, for instance, the 15th of August last year, I went into the clerk's office and I was told that I had no rights in there by Melissa Scorantino. She kicked me out and she didn't file and she denied me service. I filed a notice of claim of that and I intend to file a lawsuit against that. But you know, there's so many things going on. Like even when Raffaello was mayor, he gave them the church for $1 and made an agreement with them as long as they bring their dead to his funeral home. Things like that is just wrong. I've been talking to the Attorney General. I've been asking for an investigation on Mr. Irving because he is, you know, the councilman of that area, and I feel he's betrayed his own people. Racism has been around for a long time. We do expect people to say, hey, if we don't do this to your children, then our children will suffer. So I do expect that from some people, but for him to sit up here with the rest of these Caucasians and sell out his own people the way he's done, he deserves to be in prison. And I'm
I would like to ask you to bring this back to actual city business, please. So
that's city business for me. Well, I'm done.
No, but thank you. Thank you very much. The next speaker this evening is Bethany Arrington Peck. Let's come forward. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244, Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bethany Arrington Peck. I live in District 1. One of the reasons I like Utica so much is it's full of survivors. It's full of people who have seen this city get kicked in the metaphorical teeth a time or two, and still they hang on hoping and voting and praying that you all will do better. And I think you can, which is why I'm here. I also think that's why some of you are running for mayor. I would like to start by offering an apology for a statement I made at last special council meeting. I believe I used the phrase, "I'm tired of old white men telling us what to do with downtown." I saw that I lost some of you. While I encourage you to do the important work of understanding your privilege, especially while holding positions of power in our community, I know that I reduced some of you to a cliche, and that can hurt. I am sorry for what I said and how I made you feel. Now I'm going to talk about how I feel. I attended my first Common Council meeting on June 13th, Tuesday. I took time out of my work schedule to pop over to City Hall to express my bewilderment at the prospect of banning bike lanes on Genesee. How dare I? At least that's the impression that many of you gave. I'm not going to rehash my entire experience. I already did that on Instagram, but I will highlight the top 3 moments. 1, I heard one of your staffers go, "Oh man, there's people here." That made me feel super welcome. 2, when the council president announced he had a ball game to get to by 5:15 p.m. Now, I get that the public can be obnoxious. I get that maybe you do have other obligations, but this is your job. You all signed up for this. You signed up to listen to people. And 3, when a council person directly addressed those present and asked how many people were asked here by a certain council person. We weren't, but I have a better question. Why did it matter if we were asked? Why are you angry that a member of the council addressed their constituents with an issue they found troubling and let us know the council would be voting on it? Why did you seem put out that we engage with our local government? It blatantly came off that this council person felt like we were wasting their time. How dare we? I'm not going to pretend that being in public office is easy, but to feel like you don't belong at your own city council meeting is quite an experience. So here's why I'm standing here. Some of you seem to have forgotten why you chose to serve the public. From what I can see, most, not all, of you are more concerned with getting your way than about what this city needs or wants. I hope these comments are a reminder to you. This is also a reminder to anyone watching now or in the future, and all of you sitting here. These individuals, they were elected to represent us and advocate for us. We as citizens deserve to know what decisions are being made on our behalf and not be treated as an inconvenience when we express interest in the process. Common Council, please remember who you work for. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, Alex Arrington Peck. The Common Council provided you a copy of Section 3244, Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes, I am. My name is Alex Arrington Peck, and I live in District 1. I'm attending this session, and I actually hope to be attending future council meetings with public comment because I want to make sure my voice is heard on the issues that impact this community. Tonight, I want to speak about an interaction that left me feeling a little bewildered and upset, and I wanted it to be on the record. As you know, Bethany and I attended last Tuesday's special council meeting to express our displeasure with the vote banning bike lanes as a permitted exemption of the Complete Streets plan. Following public comment, this body voted to pass the amendment with added language extending the driving lanes to 16 feet and extending the bike lane down Genesee to the New Hartford line. Following that Tuesday session, my very able and outspoken wife wrote to Talk at the Town to express her thoughts about the experience. We were then welcomed and invited to be on the program that morning on Thursday, June 15th. We welcome this as an opportunity to alert the public to how this council meeting went and urge citizens to become more informed in the operations of city politics. During the broadcast, we mentioned Councilwoman Klossma Testa's statement to the audience of how many of you were asked to be here today by a certain council person. Now, if you listen to the broadcast, which you can, we declined to name her. In fact, the host said, "I watched it, this is who said it." We talked about how wild of a statement this was because it seemed to contravene the whole point of the political process, which is if there's an issue that has concerns, your councilperson should educate you on that issue. At the end of the interview, I was informed that both Talk of the Town and its hosts had received texts and comments from Councilwoman Claudia Testa. She then sent via email Councilwoman Iaio's designating petition, which contains my name as someone who gathered signatures on her behalf, and my wife's name in the committee vacancy section. She then wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't actually remember, something along the lines of, Bethany and I would be running in a vacancy situation for Miss Iaio's seat, and therefore this is all political and we shouldn't be listened to. First and foremost, as I understand New York Election Law 6148, the purpose of a committee to fill a vacancy is that members of the listed committee act to find a replacement representative for the position that is vacant, not that the committee or any of its members of the committee are to run in that person's stead. Think of it like the operation of your local political party, Democratic or Republican Party. The board votes on who they want their candidate to be. If that person declines, they nominate somebody in their stead. So it wasn't a situation where we were saying, sure, if Miss Iaio passes away or declines to run, we'll step in. Second, why were we on that sheet? Well, because we decided to move here after we were told about how wonderful Utica was and how awesome it is by Councilwoman Iaio. You see, we could have lived basically anywhere in central New York for my work, but when we visited and stopped by Character Coffee and asked what we were up to, Councilwoman Iaio told us that when we decided whether or not to move here, she said we should move here. She said, this is a great city, and you would really like it. After a day of visiting and meeting everyone in this wonderful city, we were sold, and we still go to Character quite a bit. So when Katie announced that she was running and asked if we'd be on our committee in case of a vacancy, we said, sure. We live in District 1, we're married with no kids, and we'd really love to find somebody that could represent our district well. Third, why does our presence on Katie's sheet invalidate our opinion? Sure, we like Katie, but we don't always agree with everything she says or does. We're not sycophants. We're citizens. Why did it matter if we were involved in the political process? Is everyone in this room not involved in the political process? Why can't citizens take an active role in their government without being called out and it being used against them? But finally, I need to address what was really disturbing. Councilwoman Testa didn't just email the designating petition to the Talk of the Town, she posted an unredacted copy with my address and apartment number on Facebook. That is, I cannot express how disappointing and inappropriate that is to me. Now, before I hear objections, I understand, I'm a lawyer, I understand this is a public document, but it was made extraordinarily public and given extra space and extra presence to put it on a public Facebook page. In the parlance of today as kids, we were actually doxxed, which means our home information was shared without our consent on a public forum. It could have just taken a few seconds for our address to be blacked out and the point would have been made. Incorrectly, but the point still would have been made, right? That we were so close to Councilwoman Iaio that we shouldn't be paid attention to. Now, I'm sharing this because I really feel this contravenes the whole way this process should operate. I would love for the post to be removed, and heck, maybe it has, but it was up all weekend. But at this point, I've directed everyone to its existence. But what I'd really like is an apology. An apology because my opportunity to speak was used as an opportunity to shame me, to direct users of our area's most popular morning radio show to my home address and make me and my wife feel that speaking up about a damn bike lane had consequences. I'm disappointed that this happened, but I'm more disappointed that I had to share this experience that for the fear that if I didn't, it would continue and potentially go unaddressed the next time I wanted to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker this evening is Anthony Maris Swan. The Common Council's provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yep, sure am.
Thank you. Please state your name. You may begin.
Anthony Maris Swan. I live in Ward 5. In 2020, my wife and I chose to move back home to Utica. We'd become really excited about all the things that were happening here, and we were convinced that this is where we wanted to put down roots for good. I'm still convinced that that was the right decision, but I'm here tonight because I'm nervous about the future of the city. I actually agree with Councilman DeBrango that this conversation about bike lanes has gone on way too long. But this solution of banning bike lanes and creating 16-foot travel lanes is absurd. It would be a disaster. I'm a planner by trade. My job is to look at policy and assess outcomes based on research and data. A 16-foot wide bike lane, travel lane, is not just unusual, it's unheard of. This is because there's overwhelming evidence that lanes this wide are extremely dangerous. Here's something we know about the behavior of drivers. When we drive down a city street, the speed at which we travel actually has very little to do with the posted speed limit. It has to do with visual cues that tell us how safe it is to drive. That's why it's so hard to enforce speeding laws on streets that are not designed properly, streets that are overbuilt. A quick example, if you drive south down Oneida Street from Oneida Square, there's tons of visual cues. So you're looking at a 30-foot wide roadway. There's cars parked on both sides of the street. There's lots of trees. There's people walking around. The houses are pretty close to the street. There are lots of things telling you that you need to be careful when you're there because you could hurt somebody if you're driving too fast. What happens when you cross the parkway and continue south on Oneida Street? The speed limit doesn't change. It's 25 all the way up the hill. But the roadway widens to about 38 feet. There's no more houses on your left. It's just open space. And your inclination as a driver is that it's safe to accelerate a little bit. So people do. I've seen people going pretty quick up that road, as I'm sure you have too. Another thing we know is there's a speed threshold at which it becomes far less likely to survive getting hit by a car if you're a pedestrian. At 25 miles an hour, if you're hit by a car, you're about 90% likely to survive that. At 35 miles an hour, that drops to about 70%. At 40 miles an hour, that's a coin flip. So if you're hit by a car traveling at speeds that are common on that kind of roadway, you may very well die from those injuries. That is why this is such a crazy idea. So what's the policy conclusion that we can glean from these two pieces of information? We make streets safer when we narrow them. Safer for everybody. The best practice most widely recommended for an environment like Genesee Street in downtown Utica is 10.5 to 11 feet, exactly what we have right now. I see people driving 40 down that stretch of Oneida Street all the time, and if we widen these lanes on Genesee Street to 16 feet, drivers will take that as a cue that it's safe to move at those speeds. People will get hurt, and people will die. It's just a matter of time. I'd really like to believe that some council members simply don't understand this information. For some reason, they refuse to learn it. That on its own is frustrating because it's very well established and supported by data. But I sincerely hope that this is the case because the alternative to that is, the alternative to just ignorance is doing something deliberately, something petty and mean-spirited and vindictive for no good reason and with no regard for public safety. For the first time in my life, new voices are rising in the city. I hear optimism and ambition in conversations about our future. That's why we came back. This move sends a message that those voices are unwelcome, as is any disruption of the status quo. For myself and my peers, young people who are working very hard to make a life for themselves in this city, it's a smack in the face. And it makes me nervous. I think we can do a lot better than that. Please, please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so before we move on to the next speaker, I just want to reference one point of order and how the council meetings work. We have public comment period. Everyone reads public comment period rule, etc. The council members obviously do not interact. However, further on in the meeting, there are petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. And while during the regularly scheduled meetings and all meetings chaired by the council president, everyone must direct all comments at the chair, council people, towards the end of the meeting, may comment on different things. So I would like to invite everyone who is here, who may be participating in public comment, to also stay for when the council people can actually speak as well during petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. I just wanted to mention that so that although everything is directed at the chair, that's the case. And while this is very specific, there are two more speakers. I just want to make a note to everyone, including council people and everyone in the audience. The legislation that was passed did not reference or mandate or create 16-foot lanes. No, just keep it. I just wanted to mention that. So if anyone else is commenting on that, the legislation can be found on Eco 360 that was passed. Now, it will be up to the engineering department to deal with that, but I'll just reserve, I just wanted to make that one point that legislation was not passed, because the public is watching this as well, to mandate or create 16-foot lanes. So I'll leave it at that. The next speaker this evening is Cimbria Betzenhusen, or Kimbria, sorry. Wait, which? Yes, sorry. Got a lot going on up here, I apologize. Yes. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Please state your name and you may begin.
My name is Kimbria Bodenhausen, and I live in Cornhill. I'm not going to be as eloquent as everybody else who's come before me, and I want to thank you all for your input. The reason I signed up to speak tonight is because I've been appointed to the New York State Extreme Heat Community Advisory Panel. And we're going to be hosting a regional workshop July 12th. It's not completely firmed up yet, but it's the purpose is to listen to community members and what their experience is during extreme heat events. We also want to have planners there and elected officials. So you're all invited to attend. We're going to focus the listening session on the regular people, the citizens that show up. But if we don't get 40 people, you're welcome to sit in and contribute to the brainstorming and the feedback to New York State. So that's July 12th. I also wanted to advocate for keeping the bike lanes. I also have worked with Complete Streets in about 4 or 5 other states, and they're all doing this. New Hampshire, a very conservative state, was doing this back in 2010. Vermont does it, Maine does it, and everything the gentleman said is completely right. The idea is that if you narrow the streets, and some people are putting in rain gardens, there's a lot of different solutions for narrowing those streets. When you do that, then the traffic does slow down, and it's a much safer environment for everyone. So I do like the idea of the bike lanes, and I do know that there are people in the winter, when the sidewalks aren't clear, they're using the bike lanes to actually go safely down the street, the people who don't drive and aren't biking, pedestrians, professional pedestrians. So I want you to remember that, you know, we're not keeping our sidewalks as clear as we could be, and so that may be another way that people are safely getting around the city. So thank you for listening to me, and just be kind, okay?
Thank you. And can you please provide the information for the July 12th event to the clerk so she could forward that to the council? Thank you. Sarah Moore is the final speaker this evening. The Comment Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
I am.
Please state your name. You may begin.
All right, my name is Sarah Moore, and I live downtown, actually on Genesee Street. Although some of you may know that already, this is actually my 3rd time coming here to talk about how much I love bike lanes. But I admit that I was hesitant this time, because while I'm excited by bike lanes and while I was excited to see the Complete Streets trial, after seeing how some of my fellow Utica citizens were treated at the last meeting, I was a little afraid of how some of you would react to my being here. But I'm gonna go ahead anyway. Bike lanes are quickly becoming a sign of a thriving city, a city that thinks about all its residents and not just a select few, and signs of a city that thinks about its future. All these reasons and more are why I was devastated to see the council vote to ban bike lanes on my street from Oriskany to the new Hartford line. I advocate for bike lanes because I'm afraid of being killed on my bike in the street where I live. This is not an exaggeration. I've been hit by reckless drivers while riding my bike. If this has ever happened to you, you know that you truly believe that you will die. And you believe it because in the battle between a car and a bike, the bike loses every time. Not only is that fear renewed now, but I'm also afraid of being killed in my car on Genesee. The decision to also remove the line for the buffer lane that currently exists creates an incredibly dangerous situation. Though a 16-foot wide lane may not be mandated, that's what will happen with the combination of the road diet and the removal of that buffer lane. It's for that reason that I struggle to believe these measures are done in any kind of name of safety. It's for that reason that I see this bike lane ban and the removal of this buffer lane as nothing but a petty and vindictive move. I'm a new Utica resident, but I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. This is my home now, and I believe that there are limitless ways that it can be better. Many of us are asking for is what should be the bare minimum, an investment in our safety and in the future of this city that we all live in. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no guests this evening, other than all of you, who are guests, of course. Communications from the mayor, I don't believe we have any. Reports from the city officers. Chief Ingersoll.
No report.
Thank you. Corporation Counsel.
Nothing to report.
Lieutenant Berger.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Phillips.
I have nothing to report, but I feel like I always should report something. You know what I mean? And it's just, when we found the weekend, we had Father's Day this weekend, and we had Juneteenth this weekend. And there was a lot of celebrations going on. Robbie Dancy got a proclamation for the mayor for all the work she's done for civil rights and promoting Juneteenth. And Levitt was really wonderful Monday. If you haven't had a chance to get out to Levitt. But the only thing I have to report is my officers went out Tuesday and Wednesday, and usually after these long weekends, you know, the city's trashed. You know, there's litter, there's, you know, people didn't cut their lawns because they were out doing stuff. And everybody was pleasantly surprised. I mean, you know, some people took care of their city this weekend. They cut their neighbor's grass. There wasn't a ton of litter. The parks were taken care of. So I would just like to commend the people of Utica. They did a good job this weekend, and there were, you know, not a lot of violent incidents, right? It was a good weekend, so that's all I can report.
Thank you. Cash report.
The City of Utica cash report for May 2023 is $76.414 million received and filed.
Thank you. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Councilmember Katie Aiello, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to everybody who came and spoke tonight. And of course, the topic will keep coming up of the streets, it seems like. And as we're going over the ordinance that was passed last week, well, I think it's disappointing that bike lanes are banned. I think it's also, things are improving. The turning lane is still an amazing part of the street. The 3 lanes is helping. I think there can be improvements, and taking away that buffer area. If you take away that actual 5-foot space, it does make it 16 feet. So I think that's where people are coming up with the 16 feet line. But other than that, the good things that did happen this week is I got to hang out in Councilman Burmaster's district yesterday, and the skate park is open. It is absolutely incredible. Everybody, please go check it out. And it was the work of a lot of great people. You were, Marcus, you were saying earlier how Spone Ranch was just falling in love with the community, and those were the coolest meetings to ever be a part of all these skaters coming in, and the way they would even disagree with each other. It was just such an example of how I hope we can just all learn from, and it's just a really cool part of our community. So very grateful for that. Go check it out. And yes, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Second District, Councilmember Robert Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank the city for working on Lincoln Skate Park. It's going to be a nice, pleasant improvement to the area, and I want to thank Marcus and the city staff for working on that. We have another project over on Columbia Street, which they're working on now. It's going to be completed shortly, and I'm hoping that's going to be a step in the right future. And I guess that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Third District, Councilmember Celeste Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. 3 quick things. I do want to thank people for coming tonight to public comment. Public comment has always been very important to me, and I especially appreciate that people come back to public comment even though they don't like how they are always treated here at that public comment. So I really appreciate that commitment to civic engagement. I was at one of those I was at one of those Spone Ranch meetings at the Parkway Rec Center. It was great, especially when they all broke out into a foreign language that I didn't understand, which had to do apparently with the way in which you shape concrete so that you can roll over it effectively. It was really cool. I didn't understand any of it, but it was great to witness. And then Commissioner Phillips did steal my remonstrances, which is that Levitt concert was just absolutely fabulous on Monday night. I don't know how many years this has been going. Are we at 7 years, Marcus?
I
6
think it's
years?
a lot more than that. I think it's like 11.
11. Okay. So it was really terrific. It was the first night of the summer. These are every Monday night in Copernic Park. And it was absolutely beautiful to see how many people poured into the park to dance and listen to music and visit with each other. It sort of felt like a reunion because a lot of the sort of same people, even though it's a huge group, but the same people come to Levitt, so you get to see people at Levitt that maybe you haven't seen lately. So it feels like a really big family reunion, and I had a terrific time. And hats off to Michelle Truitt and everybody else who does all the hard work that makes Levitt possible year after year. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. 4th District Council Member and Majority Leader Frank Miola.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, that ARPA funding. I just really like to thank Mayor Palmieri and his staff. This is a big accomplishment for all of them. It's a lot of money being spent. It's a lot of communications, a lot of time, a lot of excavating. You know, for the police, fire, the fire department getting all new facilities and improving each fire station. And the most important is the parks. I do believe our children are going to really enjoy the parks and the new renovations to all the parks that we're going to have. Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you very much, staff. I'd just like to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. Please stay safe, enjoy our families, and I'd just like to wish my father a happy birthday because he's turning 80 on 4th of July. So thank you very much.
Thank you. 5th District Council Member Venice Irvin. You have the floor.
First of all, I want to thank the city of Utica for what they did with Kimball Park. It turned out very well. The kids loved the zip line and all of the other stuff that we have in there. Also, I want to thank the Utica Road Runners for the race against racism that we had, where they actually ran through Cornhill. I didn't see you there, Mr. Tuff, so I just want you to know that. We do have a lot of events that we expect Black Americans to be there, but it was a very diverse group of people running, and it was very good. It went off without a hitch. Everybody talked to each other. Any questions they had for me as councilman, I answered them. So it's those type of events where we have in our neighborhood where I can answer questions, talk to people. And I also would like you to know Mr. Tufts, and I'm talking to the president like I'm supposed to. I've been in the NAACP for 15 years. We reconstructed a Gotta Go In Again. I was president for 4 years. I handled 4 hate crimes in Oneida County and 1 in Herkimer County. So for you to stand there and say what you said about me don't bother me, because I understand I've dealt with people that are prejudiced before. And some of the things you said about me and some of my constituents here was very prejudiced. And I hope you can get over that and get your life together. Thank you.
Thank you. 6th District, Councilmember Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand, I'm a member of the Urban Renewal Committee, and I'm very proud of that, as I spoke last week. And when I heard Mr. Tufts talking last week about his people not having an opportunity to get houses and all that, I never made, ever did I ever make an excuse why they weren't there. What I did was explain to him and gave him my card and explained to him how they have to go about the process of bidding on a house. And that's what I did. So I just want to know that. That's what the other thing I want you to know is in this coming week, June 26th, Monday, I have my normal office hours plus our North Utica meeting is this Monday. And also I was just informed tonight that on 10 o'clock on Monday, they will be opening up the new dog park in North Utica. So that's what's going on there, and thanks for everything else, and have a happy 4th of July.
Thank you. Councilman at Large and Minority Leader Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing, Mr. Hendricks did pass away, right, today? Yeah. So I wanted to put a shout out to him, and he did 20 years of community service with us, and you know, he was involved, and I think we should want to put it out there.
Thank you. Councilwoman at Large, Samantha Colosimo-Testa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of people passing away, Al LaSalle, who was a former firefighter, retired fireman for the Utica Fire Department, and a dedicated servant to our council meetings in the city of Utica, passed away on June 10th at the age of 87. So, I mean, if this council could just maybe a couple seconds, just a little silent, and, you know, thanking Mr. LaSalle for his service to the city of Utica, and, you know, appreciating all his commentary while he was, you know, during public comment.
Would you mind if I
Go
state
ahead.
something?
Yeah, please.
At the next meeting, our moment of silence after the pledge.
And I wanted it to
can
make it
be
tonight,
dedicated
but
to
I didn't
Al.
want to go out of
Yes.
order, so I would appreciate
No,
that in
that's
the
what we
next,
can do.
in the next
Absolutely.
meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
On to some positive news. I've been coaching Little League for close to 5 years now, or excuse me, baseball for 5 years now. But our baseball team won the 2023 Little League champion playoff game on top of the regular season. So I just got to give a shout out to our Little League team for coming in strong. I wanted to invite them here tonight. Unfortunately, half our team was at a playoff game for All-Stars, so they couldn't be here tonight. But it was a proud moment as a mom, as a coach, to watch these kids grow and to see the work that they did. So it was a proud moment for the city of Utica to see them hold that title for them. And the last thing I wanted to say was Albany Elementary School had their carnival today. And even though I'm part of PTO, or PTA, whatever you want to call it, and any involvement, I try to do my due diligence, but I also have another school that I teach at that needs my component to that too. But they had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful carnival. I want to thank the Utica Police Department, Utica Fire Department for being there today. Those kids had way more to do than I ever did at an elementary school, and it was pretty awesome to see. So it's been a week full of kids, and it's really an end of a good, school year this year, and I hope that the summer's safe for them, and that's it. Hope everybody has a great 4th of July. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman at Large and President Pro Tem Frank DeBrango. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think Mark said it. My condolences to Bill Hendrick's family there. He had 25 years of service on the county legislature. He actually was employed by the security company that I worked for a few years. And he was a good officer, he was a good man, very community-minded person, and he's a big man, too. He was a good security officer. And my condolences to his family. I also have a happy birthday to my dad, who's going to be 84 tomorrow. So we're going to have a little get-together. Actually, they're at my house now, so when I leave the meeting, I'll be joining the celebration. As far as the 16-foot lane, I know some of the members in the audience. I appreciate your concern, and but I never proposed 16-foot. I don't. It's up to the engineering department. I just mentioned. I read on the internet that the 16-foot lane could be considered a single lane, and I did have conversations with the engineer, the junior engineer who's in charge of the streets, and I think he come up with a decent plan to restructure some of that there, but we haven't seen it yet. Hopefully he'll send it out to the council so we could take a look at it, but everybody has opinions. In my opinion, I'm okay with bike lanes are safe, but I don't think the bike lane located between two vehicles is safe, and that's my opinion. I'm one of 9, so that's why I voted the way I did. But that is all. So I did not make that. Whatever authority I have, I'm not going to tell them what to do and how to mark the lanes as far as 16 feet. It just that would be absurd on my part. So, thank you.
Thank you. I have a few things this evening. The first thing, while I'd like to congratulate Councilwoman Colosimo-Testa on her win, I would like to ask her how many of those kids came from my minor A team and how much she benefited from my training of those Little League players in the previous season. All right, yeah.
Only 3, no.
No, but a few things, in all seriousness. One of them will be from me, but the other things will be absolutely matter of fact. For the public out there, for anyone in the audience, I do want to mention how special meetings are run and why they exist, how they happen. There was a lot of commentary after that last meeting, and there's two things. One, the majority can call a special meeting. That is why that meeting happened. Two, that agenda is set by the majority. We've had frequent special meetings lately, more frequent, I should say. One of the things that is typically not part of special meetings is public comment, because the majority sets the agenda. Typically, it's the only thing on the actual agenda is the legislation that the majority decides will be on that agenda, and that is the only thing I'm bound as chair, as council president, to drive for the meeting. At the last few meetings, because of such contentious things that were discussed and how they were actually proposed on the floor and then held and discussed and acted on at a special meeting in short order after a regularly scheduled meeting, I did add public comment to that so the public could remain part of that process. I'm stating this because there are people that feel unwelcome, there are people that feel they're not being included, and I do want people to understand that while things do get contentious, actual actions are being made to make sure you are absolutely included in the process. The second thing is the meeting itself, that last meeting. I don't appreciate any meeting where people are out of order, but it is the role of the chair to keep people in order. And this meeting is posted for the public to view. So anyone can be the judge if they'd like, but I just do want to state, for all the commentary about people being treated badly, etc., as chair, I had to rein in not only council people, but also the audience equally. And it was not appreciated, but I did have to do my job as council president to do that. This meeting has been the exact opposite, and I appreciate everyone's commentary, how people proceeded, and the fact that if asked, people are immediately called to order. So I appreciate that. The last thing, which is from me, and will be in part about the special meetings, why they happen, etc., is the commentary that keeps being discussed over the last couple of weeks about me having to go to a baseball game. That was stated during public comment earlier. Now, at the last meeting, I was frustrated with what was going on. I was not expressing that frustration, I was driving a meeting. But at the point where commentary was repeated over and over and over again, and at one point I had to actually say that if things are repeated, you will have to yield the floor because it was stated already to move the conversation along. Now, this is being thrown around because, you know, it sounds like I'm going to a Blue Sox game. When special meetings are called, we all are bound to be here. What I was expressing to the council was that while the meeting started at 4:30 and the discussion for 45 minutes after public comment was quite repetitive, and we did get the discussion completed until no one had anything new to say, what was actually going on was there was 14 children on a baseball field waiting for their coach. And I was simply explaining to the council that if nothing new needed to be stated, we had to move to the vote because that is how Robert's Rules works. And I wanted to impress upon the council that while it's absolutely in our power to call as many special meetings as we want, when they're done in such a way where they're just dropped on us left and right, because we are ripsawing back and forth, because we no longer have a legislative process that proposes legislation prior to a meeting. We no longer get together for smaller committee meetings to discuss legislation prior to actual action on the floor. We no longer do any of those things that'll put us in a room in the view of the public before decisions are brought to a vote, that maybe we should use our time wisely. That is why I stated that. Now, moving forward, I hope that the actual room stays in the order it's in now, and that if the council president has to rein in the audience for standing up and screaming at the council, that they don't feel that they're being treated badly. And if council people interrupt each other and address the audience inappropriately if they're reined in by the council president, they're also not being treated badly. It's the role of a chair. Thank you. Moving on.
Proposed ordinance number 1.
Mr. President, I'd like to move the bond ordinance number 1.
Is there a second? Okay, Burmaster's the second on that. This is a bond ordinance authorizing the issuance of $2.75 million of additional serial bonds of the City of Utica, Oneida County, New York, to finance the cost of reconstruction and improvement of the city's sewer system, CSO Project A9.1. This piece of legislation has to do with stormwater separation from sewage. Thank you. This was gone over extensively during the actual pre-meeting conference, and I will summarize. Whereas the Common Council of the City of Utica, Oneida County, April 21st, 2021, adopted bond ordinance number 15, which was the issuance of $1.825 million of serial bonds. Now therefore be it ordained by the affirmative vote of not less than 2/3 of the total voting strength of the Common Council of the City of Utica as follows. Section 17, this ordinance, which takes effect immediately, shall be published in full or summary form in the Observer Dispatch, the official newspaper, together with a notice of the city clerk in substantially the form provided in section 81 of the local finance law. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Proposed ordinance number 2.
Mr. President, I'd like to move ordinance number 2, speed limit.
DeBrango is the second on that. Thank you. Be it ordained that section 216.136, Schedule B, the maximum speed limit for the city's streets set forth below, be amended to read as follows. Pleasant Street north side from Memorial Parkway to Tilden Ave, 20 miles per hour. Be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
It was discussed in pre-meeting conference that there would be a motion to commit resolution number 3.
Yes, I'd like to commit, resolution number 3, please.
Thank you. Burmaster's the second. This was a tree advisory board appointment. Placed in committee. Anyone opposed? Okay. Proposed resolution number 4.
I'd like to commit number 4, please, Mr. President.
Second for Burmaster. This is the second tree advisory board appointment. Any opposed? It's in committee. Just a note, was discussed in pre-meeting conference. I wanted to be on the record that the clerk will send each of the council members the tree advisory board information so that it can be distributed by the council members and posted. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
That's relevant to the last 2 tree board appointments. Those 2 came from the mayor that we just committed.
Correct. Yep. I think the E&A transfer is next, no?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Okay. Proposed ordinance number 5.
Mr. President, I'd like to move proposed ordinance number 5, but we'd like to read in the amendment. I think we need a separate motion because it was introduced to us without that lower half. And we need to read into the record.
I have a new piece here. Hang on just 1 second.
The piece containing the
So
harbor
this is
soccer
the,
field.
we don't have to amend this because this is being introduced on the floor. So are you introducing the piece?
As amended, including the soccer field, yes.
All right, so, proposed ordinance number 5, be it ordained the city controller is hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds. And even though we went over this in detail, this is for what budget year?
Good catch.
It's 23-24. So the title will read E&A transfer for the fiscal year 23-24.
Motion to amend, right, Mr. President? Because now we're
I'm just going to read
amending.
it into the record,
Okay,
as,
very
and then
good.
you can just introduce it as rep.
As amended.
Mr. President, the only thing that I asked for a contingency on was that we get the renderings for the water slides and the Court Street, Whitesboro Street traffic light.
So just as a point.
All right,
of order.
go ahead,
Hang on,
I'm sorry,
hold
I
on a second.
apologize.
So I'm gonna read this into the record. Be it further ordained that AC 57145-471 Harbor Point Soccer Field was the original title of the account. The title was meant to be Harbor Point. The funds allocated were always meant to include the waterfront promenade and was an administrative error in communication between the Urban and Economic Development Commissioner and Budget Director. So there's been an account rename. Is there a second to introducing this piece as read? Councilman Beatrice is the second. All right, Councilwoman Colosimo Testa, you had some commentary. Now, you used the word contingency. So
Right.
are you requesting that these transfers are not made until you receive those renderings? Or are
I
we
mean,
voting
just-
on this evening?
I mean, the budgetary amount, like we stated, we're already in there. The only thing that I would like to see is the actual renderings. I mean, if they're already done, we can't allocate money unless we actually see the plans that are in place for it. So that was the only thing that I was
So, Mr.
requesting.
President, this is an ordinance. If she's not supporting it, it has to be
Yeah,
moved to committee.
We're either putting this in committee or we're.
I mean, you can make a contingency on an ordinance, that the ordinance is not ordained until you get that actual legislation.
No.
Hold on.
No, it can't, Frank.
Just, Councilman, or,
As long as you're
Council
putting.
Garibaldi wants the floor. Thank you. Sorry.
They'll
Don't
give it
make
to
me
us,
a
Samantha.
councilman.
I said council. Different spelling.
Did
Yeah.
that, done that.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, as long as you put it in committee, because there's all this language in here that doesn't apply, I think that in the end, when you bring it out of committee, your further ordained should be as to the purposes as set forth herein. It had nothing to do with PowerPoint. I mean, are all these places mentioned there? Well, Proctor Park's not in Harbor Point, and I just think that the description there is a little bit confusing. So, I see the point. The transfer is all for those purposes in the two. And I think that the ACS 57145-471 should be hereby amended to be whatever you say the account fund should be described,
Yeah,
and
but-
leave it at that. And for the purposes set forth herein. And the purposes are set forth herein very clearly. So this is going to committee, and I'm making that
Well-
suggestion to whoever is sponsoring this matter.
As an ENA board member, I'd want to make some
Okay.
commentary on this. You all set? All right, so before we do anything on this, one, if we're unsure about what to do with the account name, we should strike that from this legislation and do it in another point. Okay, it's a clerical error that the budget director wanted to correct. Okay? Two, while I had frustration with the projects not being presented to ENA and have had different voting results based on that along the way, we have to encumber funds and we have to make different transfers on projects that are currently underway. This is why the majority leader was stating this in the pre-meeting conference. We can put this in committee, but we will not have another meeting until the third week of July.
We've called special meetings on a lot less.
All right, hear me out here.
issues, so.
These projects were done under administrative control through the acknowledgement of ENA, through the ARPA funding. And while I agree with the judge on aspects of what he was saying earlier about the council actually seeing what's done, this was not approving or denying the projects. This is a transfer of funds, which is the result of being post-ENA distribution of the funds. Because the accounts are already set up, now it is the council's responsibility to ordain the final transfers if any of those funds need to be redistributed.
Those are over $15,000.
Yes.
Mr. President?
I'm just stating the process of why we have this right
Right,
now.
and the only point of order that I'm gonna make on your
why is it
behalf,
going to committee?
Judge, point of order, the only
Well,
thing.
there was no motion to commit yet, first off.
We have no AC 57148, I mean, this is.
That's what I'm
not-
saying, that if that's a point of confusion, you should strike that from the legislation, and I will request the budget director actually create an ordinance that gets passed through ENA to correct that actual
Right,
line.
and that's fine, but, I mean,
Because that
obviously,
should be done through ENA,
a
as far as I'm concerned
a spe-
anyhow.
Right, and a special meeting is gonna have to be held. Because, I mean, I'm not, according to the ARPA funding list, I have no problem, like I said, unless there was a contingency, but, I mean, there is not another 149. There's not, and that's, I brought that up at the pre-conference meeting. It was told that a contingency would be able to be held. But, I mean, these are new account numbers for a new fund, and therefore a transfer to me, in my understanding, would not be permitted, because you're transferring funds from an old account to a new fund, and there's no new fund set up.
Old account to a new fund.
So if you look at AC, where's 148 on our ARPA list?
It's there.
Where?
Which one is it? For park there?
There's
No,
one-
she's talking about park improvements, Hurt Playground and Seymour Park.
There's not transfer. So what account am I transferring to?
So let's strike that one, it's the only one
I'm
you
not
wanna
gonna
add.
do that though. I mean, I'm not gonna transfer $100,000, $79,000, $80,000 until I know that they're in a separate account.
All right, so let me,
And that was a contingency that I had
so
asked
let me
earlier.
take the floor back. If that's a concern, it is an ordinance, then please make a motion.
The only
I
thing that
cannot
I'm gonna
make
have,
the motion to
I mean,
commit.
if we gotta have a special meeting, I will make myself available. The problem is that I have no account to transfer them into.
And
Clear the board.
Can I say, can I have the floor for a second when you get a chance? I just wanna say,
For what is the purpose? Because there's either a motion to commit or there's.
oh, I didn't know if she made the motion. I guess there are 3 points of information that I think might inform votes, they might not, but, I think they're important for the council to have before.
I mean, but our budget director, and Marcus, this is
And you
nothing
could
to
say
do
no,
with you,
yeah.
but I have no account to transfer this to.
You cannot you can not agree with me.
We don't.
I thought ENA established those accounts.
We actually have the right to make an amendment to an account, and we are not making up a new account.
But I thought ENA established those accounts.
Right.
That's the
The
ENA
right to
process.
create-
Council
Even
don't.
if so, I still don't have it on here, on the ARPA funding list of where I'm transferring that money to, where the money's gonna be reallocated to and from.
So
She
that
said it was
is the
enough.
current list
I
as
asked
of this
it-
morning prior to this piece
And
being
I get
passed.
that.
I'm just explaining.
Okay,
That
that's
is
fine.
the
But then
reality.
if we've gotta have another meeting.
And
we've
I'm
gotta
not
have a lot
arguing what
less.
you wanna
Thank
do.
you.
What I'm asking for is, are you gonna make a motion to commit or not?
I'm gonna make a motion to commit on behalf of Judge Garamone and so on and so
Okay.
forth, so.
Is there a second?
It's gonna fail.
Well, I need a second. Okay, DeBrango is the second. Any opposed to committing this piece of legislation?
It's not unanimous, we have to, Mr. President.
I don't
Okay.
think there's time constraints on this.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to.
That's
There
why I
is.
was stating
You
about-
can agree to deal with the time
I'm
constraints.
taking the floor back. Hold
Okay.
on. That is why I specified that our next meeting is not until July 19th.
Right.
So, I'm gonna request the clerk
Call a
ask
special meeting.
which of these lines have time constraints.
Right.
Because I am absolutely aware that these projects are underway and the funds need to be encumbered.
I get that. And I would like to see the renderings. with
Could I
it.
speak to that? Because there's two things that I think are, number one, there's not renderings that exist, okay? For the water slide, there was a preliminary rendering of what a water slide would look like. That's what we showed
Correct.
in the state of the city. But until they design the specific water slide for us, we could be fooling you by showing you a rendering that's not done. So that rendering doesn't exist. Whitesboro Street wasn't designed yet. Part of the money is for professional services, so that they can design the intersection. So that's why she said she'll share it when she gets it. We need the money to do the professional services, but you could disagree. The other things, as far as timing goes, the pavilion, we wanted to get that done by the 4th of July. If we're running a tight thing anyway, it won't get done by the 4th of July. The ADA compliance, there's a road going down from the dog park. We wanted to open that dog park and work on the sidewalk now. The contractor's on that site for a certain period of time. We might encumber extra expenses if we make them stay on the site longer. So, it's all in your purview, but I just wanted to let you know what those implications.
Okay.
Just a point of order.
What's the point of order?
On that, I mean, if these are time constraint on the 4th of July, I mean, this is June 1st.
It's projects underway.
I get it.
That's-
So, I mean, come on. So, I mean, you can't blame it on the council for why the projects aren't on time, especially.
We
when
don't
we're
have to
getting-
blame it on you, but that'll be a consequence.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And then, just like Genesee Street though, I got a proposal that was done and it's separate of what I passed. And, we've got to be a little safe than sorry for what we're actually passing.
We
from here on
committed the
out.
piece.
Thank you.
I'm moving to the next piece of legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see here. Proposed ordinance number 6, intersections where stops required.
Mr. President, we need a Thursday rule waiver, sir, for the present legislation and the continuing legislation, sir. Make a motion to waive the Thursday rule, sir.
Correct. Yeah, we do not need a Thursday rule because of the rules of order.
Oh, okay.
Because it's traffic legislation.
Oh, excellent.
As
I like
verified
that.
by yes.
Excellent. I'd like to refer to committee. There was one little thing that we have to correct, and I'd like to correct it in committee, sir.
Okay, anyone opposed?
Nope.
All right.
Now you gotta wait
The
Thursday
ordaining of
rule
stop
first.
signs that already exist is in committee.
I'd like to make a motion, is that the last piece?
Two more.
Oh, 7 and 8.
Yes.
I'd
7.
like to make a motion to waive the Thursday rule for 7 and 8, please, Mr.
We
President.
do need the Thursday rule.
Second, Mr. President.
All right, any opposed?
And I'd like to make a motion to commit number 7, please, Mr. President.
Burmaster's the second. Any opposed? 7's in committee.
And I'd like to make a motion to commit number 8, please, Mr. President.
Number 8. Second from DeBrango. Any opposed?
And then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
Yeah, I would
Hold
like to
on,
add
hold
something
on.
too.
Sorry.
Just regarding pieces 7 and 8, I think we should get together maybe 5 p.m. on the next council meeting, the 16th, is it?
No, it's July 19th.
July 19th.
Yeah.
Maybe we could advertise for the
I think it's the 19th. It's the
The-
third Wednesday.
right, the positions. Maybe you could advertise for what we're looking for. I know a council person tested wanted to interview, so I think maybe we should set up interviews that day from 5 to 6.
Mr.
15 minutes apart. I don't know how many we're gonna get, but we'll see, and then we can go that route. Is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
And one more thing, Mr. President, is it possible we can call a special meeting now so we can move that E&A transfer
I would
ahead?
just like the information first.
Please, second.
When do you want to have the meeting?
What's convenient for the council? I know 4th of July is coming, so
Friday, Monday,
Monday?
Monday at 4:30?
Is everybody okay with Monday at 4:30? Any conflict? Of course, if we don't receive the information that Samantha wants by then, we'll cancel the meeting.
Right, okay.
So, serious question.
We do it at 4?
For pieces like this, we also, if anyone can do it, we've done them at noon, we've done them
Whatever the majority council prefers.
because we're discussing it on the floor. I
Let's
don't
get a
know.
consensus together, Mr. President.
The only reason I'm saying 4:30, does anyone have any conflicts post?
Yeah, well, yeah, you said the 26th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be here.
Can we do a phone? Over the phone? You could do a phone, I mean, if we can do a phone conference, that's fine.
Mr. Frank,
Could you clarify? It'd be better. That's the day we have the Monday meeting, and I got the 4:30 to 5:30, or, as long as
I mean, if we did them as individual pieces.
5:30
too,
to
that could have been helpful, Council President, instead of moving them to an individual account. I mean, I actually, let's put it like this, I will make a motion to reconsider, and I'll even give you guys this because
All right,
it's a lot.
hang on. We're talking about a special meeting.
All right, I know.
He has meetings, he's
Oh,
gonna
I
check on
have to
some
watch it.
stuff.
Reconsider something.
I don't think we should set the time.
Mr. President.
We
Right
may not
now.
need it,
Mr. President, can I actually?
Tomorrow morning, we could set out a notice after we,
If we have.
Mr. President?
yes.
And
Hang
I
on a
will-
second.
I will propose this.
Hold on 1 second. This floor needs to understand that no one should be telling the chair to stop.
Right.
I'm calling order and organizing this meeting. It needs to end. It's completely ridiculous across the board. Seriously. All right. About the setting of the time. Are we pausing that conversation for now because certain people have different meetings they aren't sure about right now?
Mr. President, maybe the motion that Samantha is about to maintain may be
Okay.
congenial enough for us not to have the meeting, sir.
Okay.
What is it, miscongeniality?
No,
Let me
I'm
put
just-
my- Let me put my strap on.
Okay.
So the only thing that I will say, and obviously the last 3 accounts don't have numbers that we have been given.
Mhm.
Since we know that the Proctor Park Pavilion, which includes the parking lot, has already been a plan in place, according to Heather Mowat. That was the first order of business that we've had through the ARPA funding. I would be more than willing to reconsider that motion to allow that to pass. I understand that the transfer has to meet up with that. if that's what the whole reason why we're calling a special meeting, to rush information that we need to get, I would make a motion to reconsider that and propose a new amendment, since our rules allow you to propose a new amendment. That's something that I could reconsider, with that motion to help the council, instead of having everybody rush through a special meeting and then just wait for the other proposed amendments.
So let me do some quick math here, because the ones you have an issue are the last three.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for Corporation Counsel and Judge Garama.
It's gotta go through E&A.
Yeah, what are the ramifications of the council amending an E&A transfer and changing it? Because the council is bound to approve an E&A transfer, but E&A is the one that actually moves the funds. If we do this, I believe it has to go back to E&A.
Then you guys just gotta have a special meeting, not us.
Well, possibly.
And then we have to ratify it after.
You
Not really.
propose, the council disposes.
Well, and that's
the
my
rule.
point, right?
Just
So
live by that.
yeah,
You propose.
I don't think that's
is-
solvable
your
the way we're
resolution
proposing.
has absolutely
Yeah.
no power in law.
Okay.
It's a suggestion to the common council only.
Right, I know.
Call it on Monday, whatever
That's
time.
all right.
That works.
anything else?
Could I have the floor for a second? I just want to be clear, because Councilman Miola said contingent on the information that she asked for.
No,
And the renderings don't exist. So what do you want?
Here's the thing.
That does not,
That is an issue, and we're gonna have to deal with it. We will get, if they're not renderings, some explanation of exactly what is being attributed to those funds.
I'll
That's
get
what
it
we're gonna
to you
have to
guys.
deal
I
with.
just need to know
Yes.
what to get.
What we need to do, we will poll the council tomorrow morning. A notice will go out for a special meeting. Thank you.
thank you.
Motion to close, Mr. President.
You know, there's a